Hi there, my name is Larry Holcombe and I'm one of the tutors from Garnish School of Sound. In this video I'm going to show you how to make a deep house style chord sound. The sound's going to sound something like this. Now our aim is to get you making sounds from scratch rather than tweaking presets. So I'm going to build this sound from the bottom up. To do that I'm going to come to the preset list, go to Aerosmith and choose Initialize. Aerosmith's the guy who invented Razor. So we have this plain sawtooth wave patch now to begin with. The first thing I'm going to do is switch off the glide. So glide allows you to glide in pitch between notes. I don't want that for this sound, so I'm going to take that off. And what I'm also going to do is put it from mono, which means it'll only play one note at a time, to poly, which means I can play chords. So I want this to be a chord sound, as I said at the beginning, so I'm going to need it to be poly. I'm going to take down my output because I just saw I was clipping there slightly. So what I'm going to do first of all is I want this sound to be quite analog kind of sounding, so to help me achieve that I'm going to apply LFO2 to the pitch to just subtly introduce vibrato, quite a slow speed, and I'm going to choose a sine wave as my LFO shape. It gives me a kind of slight kind of analog feel to it, almost feels as if the synth's drifting in and out of tune. Next thing I'm going to do is choose my oscillator types. So first one I've got is pulse to saw, which I'm actually going to leave as it is, that's the default. Next one I'm going to choose is a Hoover synced. So Hoover is a pulse width modulation oscillator. Pulse width allows you to change the symmetry between a square wave and a pulse wave. It's great for adding movement to a sound. Actually gives rise to the classic Hoover sound, hence the name of the oscillator. So what I'm going to do is apply LFO1 to the pulse width. Just drag that up a little bit. Again, slow LFO speed. It's all about slow movement in the sound. I'll turn down the amp of that oscillator slightly so it's not as loud. And again, I'm going to take down my output a little bit. Next thing I'm going to do is use a safe bass control just to bring in a bit of energy at the fundamental frequency. I'm going to bring the slope down, which changes it from a saw to a sine wave. And I'm just going to subtly add a bit of warmth in there at the fundamental frequency, a bit more bass in there. Next up I'm going to look at the amplitude envelope. The envelope which is going to affect the volume of the sound. I don't want it to sustain, so I'm going to bring that down. This is now going to give me a short percussive kind of sound, not very pad-like. What I'm going to add next is this echo parameter, which turns the envelope into an echoing envelope, which almost basically acts like a delay. So what I've got here is feedback and then delay. Feedback is the amount of delays that I can hear, and delay is the delay time. So it's sounding quite dubby now with that delay on there. Next thing I'm going to add is a formant filter. So formants are the kind of frequencies that are created by the human mouth and the human voice. And using this formant dial I can scroll through those frequencies. Again, great for adding movement to the sound. To do that I'm going to use an envelope. So I'll bring the amount up. So I accidentally clicked on that again, which is why this has come up. And what I'm going to do is give it a slow attack, and I'm going to give it a sustain all the way to the top because I want the sound to remain at the top when I hold down the keys. Bring down that feedback a little bit. And the next filter, I'm going to introduce a low pass filter. So this is going to be a deep house style sound. They're not generally particularly bright and mid-rangey and nasty sounding, which is a sound you quite often associate with the formant filter. So I'm going to use the low pass filter to kind of tame the high frequencies and make sure that it's more of a low frequency bass sound. Okay, so sounding good, but not sounding particularly paddy at all. But if I bring in this reverb sync setting here, this is going to bring it into being more of a pad style sound. So I'll switch that up. So this is probably the most interesting parameter in Razor. Razor is an additive synth, which means that it's made up of actually multiple synthesizers that are all capable of synthesizing sine waves. There's actually 320 of them, so each sound could be made up of up to 320 different sine waves. We can see these sine waves, or partials as they're called, in the graphic display here. If I increase the cutoff, so we have more partials present. So the reverb in Razor is not a typical audio effect that you'd be used to with reverb. Usually the sound will pass through a reverb unit that will produce lots of tiny little delays. They're so close together the ear perceives it to be reverb. That's not the case in Razor. The way Razor works is the reverb is actually made of the partials, so it's an additive effect. So what that means is it allows you to completely pitch your reverb. So when you play a new note, the reverb will actually replace the reverb from the previous note. Let me demonstrate that. So if I play a chord here, bring up the cutoff a bit just to demonstrate this. If I play a chord higher up, if you notice the reverb on here, it doesn't carry on. So look at these low notes here. The reverb's completely gone, i.e. the reverb's actually pitched. I'm going to bring up my decay and my dry wet. Really wash the sound out, and now I can use my low pass filter 2 to make it a bit warmer. I'm going to boost my output a bit here. And what I've got is quite a nice deep kind of sound, which would be suitable for, as I said, deep house, dub techno, that kind of thing. And also I've got that little LFO2 affecting the pitch of the overall patch in Razor, which is giving it hopefully a slight analog kind of feel to it. So just to give you an idea of how this sound works in the context of a track, I've put together this deep house idea, and I've got the sound playing down here from Razor, just with a little bit of EQ taking out some of the low end on it. So it comes in at bar 17 playing some chords and then carries on till 33 when the track comes in. So let's have a little listen to that. So there you go, that's how the sound works in the context of a track. So I hope you found this tutorial useful, and thanks again for watching.